Get your pretty little hands off that rifle, sweetheart. This is a man's weapon. Those words came from Rear Admiral Daniel Crawford. 3 stars on his collar. 40 years of Navy brass arrogance in his voice. He reached for Master Sergeant Sarah Falcon Mitchell's Barrett M82A1 during a joint operation briefing at Forward Operating Base Thunder in Nangarhar Province. What happened next made 6 Army Rangers step back and change how the entire task force saw their only female designated marksman. Master Sergeant Sarah Mitchell sat alone in the temporary briefing room at Forward Operating Base Thunder, Nangarhar Province, cleaning her Barrett M82A1 with surgical precision. 29 years old, 5'7", lean muscle earned through years of carrying heavy rifles across desert terrain. The other operators called her Falcon, though most kept their distance. Sarah learned to shoot from her grandfather, Ivan Mitchell, a former Marine sniper who had fought in Vietnam during the late 1960s. After settling in Wyoming in 1975, Ivan bought a Winchester Model 70 and taught his granddaughter everything: wind reading, distance estimation, breathing control. By age 13, she could hit coyotes at 600 yards consistently. Her father, a Navy veteran who had served in Operation Desert Shield, initially opposed her military dreams. But after watching her outshoot every member of his old unit at a reunion competition, he drove her to the recruiter himself. She enlisted at 19, selected for the U.S. Army Sniper Course after scoring expert on every marksmanship qualification. The Army Sniper Course at Fort Benning nearly broke her. Not physically. She could carry a rucksack with the best of them. But the instructors made her prove herself twice as hard. Every shot had to be perfect. Every calculation double-checked. The other students whispered behind her back, questioning whether she belonged there, whether standards had been lowered to accommodate diversity quotas. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, the lead instructor, made it clear from day one that he expected her to fail. During the stalking phase, he assigned her the most difficult terrain. During marksmanship training, he required her to achieve tighter shot groups than her male counterparts. When she missed her first shot during week 3, he gathered the entire class around her position. "This is what happens when we lower standards," he announced loudly. "One mistake in the field means dead soldiers. Maybe some people aren't cut out for this responsibility." Sarah felt every eye on her, measuring her reaction. Some faces showed sympathy, others displayed satisfaction at her public humiliation. But her grandfather's words echoed in her mind. "Never let them see you break, little Falcon. Channel that anger into precision." She requested permission to reshoot the target. Rodriguez laughed, explaining that real combat doesn't offer second chances. Sarah insisted, pointing out that the range safety officer had called a wind shift just before her shot. The official logs would show the environmental change that had affected her bullet trajectory. Rodriguez studied her for a long moment, then nodded toward the firing line. "One shot," he said. "Miss again, and you're out of the program tonight." Sarah settled behind her rifle, feeling the weight of her military career balanced on a single trigger pull. The target sat at 850 meters, a distance that required perfect calculation of wind drift, bullet drop, and atmospheric conditions. She controlled her breathing, feeling her heartbeat slow as muscle memory took over. The shot broke clean. Through her scope, she watched the bullet impact dead center, achieving a perfect score despite the challenging conditions. The range fell silent except for the whisper of wind through the Georgia pines. Rodriguez walked to her position, examining the target through his spotting scope. When he turned back to the class, his expression had changed completely. "That," he announced, "is how you make a shot under pressure." Mitchell just demonstrated why we train to these standards. From that moment, the dynamic shifted. Sarah had proven she belonged not through accommodation, but through superior performance under extreme stress. Her classmates began seeking her advice on wind reading techniques. Instructors started using her shooting positions as examples for other students. During the final exercise, a complex scenario involving multiple targets at varying distances while under simulated combat stress, Sarah achieved the highest overall score in the class history. Her precision under pressure, combined with her tactical awareness and communication skills, set new benchmarks for sniper training programs. When she graduated with honors, the commanding officer himself handed her the certificate, noting she had set multiple course records that would stand for years. Her motivation was crystalline. Precision saved lives. Every trigger pull meant another soldier coming home safely to their family. Her first deployment took her to Iraq, where she provided overwatch for convoy movements, eliminating threats before they could detonate improvised explosive devices. During one mission outside Fallujah, she spent 18 hours in a hide site, waiting for one shot that prevented an entire patrol from walking into a carefully planned ambush. The shot came at dusk, through a sandstorm that reduced visibility to mere meters. Using thermal imaging and her understanding of ballistic performance in adverse conditions, she eliminated a high-value target at over 2,000 meters. The engagement was verified by 3 separate spotters and documented in official after-action reports. That precision shot became legendary among those who knew, though the official records credited it to fortunate timing rather than exceptional skill. Sarah learned early that recognition often went to those with the right connections rather than the right capabilities. In Afghanistan, Sarah spent countless hours in overwatch positions, protecting ground units as they moved through hostile territory. The mountainous terrain of Nangarhar province presented unique challenges that tested every skill she had developed during training. Wind patterns changed without warning between valley floors and ridgelines. Temperature variations affected bullet trajectory in ways that required constant recalculation. Her most legendary engagement occurred during Operation Thunderstrike, a complex mission targeting Taliban leadership in the remote valleys near the Pakistani border. Sarah had been tracking a high-value target for 4 days, a Taliban commander known as the Ghost who had orchestrated attacks, killing dozens of coalition forces. Intelligence reports indicated the Ghost would attend a strategic meeting in a compound overlooking the Kuna River. Sarah positioned herself on a ridgeline 2,400 meters from the target location, beyond the maximum effective range of most sniper rifles. The distance pushed her Barrett M82A1 to its absolute limits in the thin mountain air. For 14 hours, she remained motionless in her hide site during a January blizzard, waiting for the perfect shot. Snow accumulated on her rifle scope. Ice formed on her trigger finger. The temperature dropped to -15 degrees Fahrenheit, affecting her equipment's performance and requiring constant adjustment of her ballistic calculations. The Ghost appeared at dawn, identifiable through thermal imaging despite the weather conditions. Sarah had one opportunity before he disappeared back into the compound's protected interior. The shot required accounting for extreme cold, crosswinds exceeding 20 miles per hour, and the Coriolis effect of Earth's rotation at such extended range. She controlled her breathing, feeling her heartbeat slow despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. The crosshairs settled on the target's center mass. The trigger broke with surgical precision. The bullet's flight time exceeded 3 seconds, an eternity in combat shooting where conditions could change instantly. Through her scope, she watched the impact. Perfect center hit. The Ghost dropped immediately, eliminating a threat that had eluded coalition forces for 8 months. 3 separate spotters verified the engagement distance at 2,427 meters, establishing a new theater record that would stand for years. The successful elimination prevented a coordinated attack plan for the following week that would have targeted multiple forward operating bases simultaneously. Intelligence recovered from the compound revealed detailed assault plans that could have resulted in hundreds of casualties. Despite the tactical significance of her shot, the official after-action report barely mentioned her contribution. Command credited the mission's success to excellent intelligence, gathering, and coordinated ground operations. Sarah had grown accustomed to this pattern throughout her career, where her precision work enabled mission success while others received recognition. Her reputation among special operations units grew through word of mouth rather than official channels. Army Rangers began specifically requesting her for Overwatch duties. Delta Force operators shared stories about the female sniper who could make impossible shots in conditions that defeated conventional wisdom. They called her Falcon, acknowledging her ability to strike with deadly precision from heights that seemed impossible. But success came with personal costs that weighed heavily on her conscience. During one mission, she had been tracking a Taliban sniper for 3 days who had killed Private First Class Johnson, a 19-year-old medic from Ohio. Command pulled her off the hunt, reassigning her to convoy security duties they deemed more appropriate for her skill level. Johnson died 2 days later when the same Taliban sniper eliminated him during a medical evacuation operation. Sarah knew she could have prevented that death if command had trusted her tactical assessment and allowed her to complete the hunt. The decision haunted her, reinforcing her belief that institutional prejudice cost lives when it overrode operational effectiveness. These experiences shaped her understanding of military culture and its resistance to recognizing capabilities that challenge traditional assumptions. Excellence wasn't always enough to overcome preconceived notions about who belonged in certain roles. Sarah learned to document everything, building an undeniable record of performance that even skeptical commanders couldn't ignore. Her personal notebook contained detailed analyses of every engagement, including environmental conditions, equipment performance, and tactical outcomes. She studied ballistics data obsessively, developing techniques for extreme-range shooting that exceeded standard military doctrine. This preparation would prove essential when facing the ultimate test of her capabilities. Forward Operating Base Thunder sat nestled in the mountains of Nangarhar Province, a strategic position that served as a staging point for operations deeper into hostile territory. The base buzzed with activity as multiple units coordinated for what everyone sensed would be a significant escalation in combat operations. Sarah had been assigned to the Joint Task Force 3 weeks earlier, her reputation having finally reached commanders who valued results over politics. The assignment represented a significant step forward in her career. Joint operations brought together the military's elite units: Army Rangers from 1st Battalion, Delta Force operators whose names appeared on no official rosters, and a handful of specialized personnel whose skills were essential for complex missions. Sarah was the only designated marksman assigned from 7th Special Forces Group. Her temporary quarters consisted of a converted storage container that she had transformed into a precision shooting laboratory. Detailed topographical maps covered every wall, marking elevation changes, wind patterns, and sight lines throughout the operational area. She had annotated these maps with months of careful observation, creating a tactical resource that existed nowhere in official military databases. Her equipment reflected the same obsessive attention to detail. The Barrett M82A1 received daily maintenance that exceeded standard requirements. She had personally tested every round of ammunition, recording velocity variations and accuracy data that allowed her to predict performance under specific conditions. Her shooting log contained environmental data for every engagement, creating patterns that informed future tactical decisions. The other operators initially maintained professional distance, unsure how to integrate a female sniper into their established dynamics. Army Rangers had worked with her during previous operations and vouched for her capabilities, but Delta Force personnel remained skeptical about adding unknown variables to their precise operational methods. Master Sergeant Williams from the Rangers served as an informal liaison, helping bridge the gap between Sarah's proven abilities and the special operations community's natural caution about untested personnel. He had witnessed her precision during multiple Overwatch missions and understood that her skills exceeded those of most designated marksmen in theater. The relationship dynamics shifted gradually as other operators observed her preparation methods and professional approach. She never sought attention or demanded recognition, instead focusing on mission requirements with an intensity that impressed even veteran special operations personnel. Her technical knowledge of ballistics and environmental factors often provided insights that enhanced overall mission planning. Chief Warrant Officer Thompson from Delta Force became her strongest advocate after witnessing her performance during a complex reconnaissance mission. Sarah had provided overwatch for his team while they gathered intelligence on a Taliban weapons cache, eliminating 3 sentries at ranges exceeding 1,500 meters without detection. Her precision had enabled the mission's success while maintaining operational security. The Joint Task Force operated under intense time pressure as intelligence reports indicated increasing Taliban activity throughout the region. Enemy forces were consolidating resources and personnel, suggesting preparation for major attacks against coalition positions. Every successful operation disrupted their planning while gathering critical intelligence about their capabilities and intentions. Sarah's role in these operations extended beyond traditional sniper duties. Her intimate knowledge of local terrain made her valuable for mission planning, while her analytical approach to tactical problems often revealed solutions that others missed. She had studied every valley, ridge line, and potential approach route within a 100-mile radius of the base. Her personal maps contained information that supplemented official intelligence reports. She had noted seasonal changes in vegetation that affected concealment options, identified water sources that influenced enemy movement patterns, and calculated optimal shooting positions for various weather conditions. This knowledge represented hundreds of hours of study that went far beyond required duties. The preparation reflected her understanding that someone's life might depend on her knowledge during critical moments. She couldn't predict when that moment might come, but her training had taught her that proper preparation prevented poor performance. Every detail mattered when precision could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. As the Joint Task Force prepared for increasingly complex operations, Sarah sensed that her moment of ultimate testing was approaching. The Taliban were planning something significant, and intelligence suggested that disrupting their leadership would be essential for coalition success. Her skills would be tested against targets that conventional approaches couldn't reach, in conditions that would challenge every capability she had developed. The briefing room filled with testosterone and ego at 07:55 hours. Rear Admiral Daniel Crawford entered with his entourage, 2 commanders, 3 lieutenants, and enough ribbon racks to stock a military supply store. Crawford had insisted on attending the tactical briefing personally against the advice of his staff, determined to show he still understood field operations despite 12 years behind a desk in Norfolk. Crawford represented everything Sarah had learned to navigate carefully during her military career. Naval Academy graduate, competitive shooter during his midshipman years, and a man who confused theoretical knowledge with practical experience. His service record showed administrative excellence, but limited combat exposure. Yet his rank commanded automatic deference from subordinates who knew better than to question his judgment publicly. He spotted Sarah immediately, his eyes narrowing at her rifle case positioned against the wall. The Barrett M82, a one stood propped with military precision, its .50 caliber presence demanding respect from anyone who understood long-range precision shooting. Crawford approached her position with the confident stride of someone accustomed to having his opinions treated as facts. His voice carried that patronizing tone reserved for people he considered beneath his notice. "What's a little girl doing with such a big gun?" he asked loudly enough for the entire room to hear. "Do you even know how to use it properly? Or is this some kind of publicity stunt?" Master Sergeant Williams from the Rangers tried to interject, explaining that Master Sergeant Mitchell held the theater distance record for confirmed engagements. Crawford waved him off dismissively, declaring that this operation needed real shooters, not diversity quotas filling combat positions that should go to qualified personnel. The Admiral continued his lecture, stating he had been shooting competitively since his Annapolis days, that he understood precision marksmanship better than some enlisted soldier playing with equipment beyond her comprehension. He had won several inter-service competitions during his younger years, he claimed, and could personally verify whether the weapon was even properly maintained. Crawford's competitive shooting background consisted primarily of known distance matches on prepared ranges with optimal conditions. He had never engaged human targets under combat stress, never calculated bullet drop through mountain wind patterns, never spent hours in freezing temperatures waiting for a single shot that could save lives or doom missions to failure. Sarah recognized the type immediately. Staff officers who confused range scores with combat capability, who believed that shooting paper targets translated directly to engaging enemy personnel under life-and-death pressure. She had encountered similar attitudes throughout her career, though rarely from someone with sufficient rank to override operational decisions through sheer authority. Chief Warrant Officer Thompson from Delta Force spoke up, warning the Admiral that Falcon had provided overwatch for their last 4 operations with exceptional results. Crawford laughed, saying he would show everyone what real marksmanship looked like if she couldn't handle the pressure of professional scrutiny. The room's atmosphere grew tense as operators who had worked with Sarah exchanged glances. They knew her capabilities firsthand, had seen her make shots that saved their lives under conditions that would challenge any sniper in the military. Crawford's dismissive attitude reflected ignorance of her proven performance record. Sarah's hands remained steady on her equipment, but inside her grandfather's words echoed, "Never let them see you break, little Falcon." She thought about every officer who had questioned her presence, every superior who had assumed she had achieved her position through quotas rather than demonstrated excellence under the most demanding conditions. This moment felt different from previous encounters with institutional prejudice. The weight pressed down not from anger, which she had learned to channel constructively, but from bone-deep exhaustion at constantly proving herself to people whose own qualifications wouldn't survive the scrutiny they applied to her performance. Crawford represented the worst aspects of military hierarchy: rank without recent relevant experience, authority divorced from accountability, and the assumption that gender determined capability regardless of objective performance data. Men like him made strategic decisions from air-conditioned offices that got operators killed in the field, then returned home to political dinners and award ceremonies. Sarah looked at the Admiral's soft hands, noting the absence of calluses from hours on the rifle range, no dirt under manicured nails from building hide sites in hostile territory. His ribbons included administrative awards and ceremonial decorations, but nothing indicating recent combat operations or the kind of field experience that tested leadership under genuine pressure. Her mind drifted to Private First Class Johnson, 19 years old from Ohio, killed by a Taliban sniper she had been tracking for 3 days. Command had pulled her off the hunt, saying they needed her elsewhere on what turned out to be a routine supply escort. Johnson died because someone in a clean uniform made a tactical decision from strategic distance, prioritizing theoretical protocol over operational reality. But this confrontation wasn't about her anymore. Every operator in this room depended on precision overwatch during their missions. If Crawford wanted to play political games with her position, people would die. The math was simple and brutal: his ego versus their lives. Crawford's grip tightened on the Barrett's barrel, pulling harder with the entitled expectation that his rank would compel immediate compliance. Sarah didn't release her hold. The rifle became a physical bridge between 2 incompatible worldviews: his administrative authority and her earned expertise through blood and precise fire. The temperature in the briefing room dropped 10 degrees as every operator realized they were witnessing something that would define relationships and operational capabilities for months to come. This wasn't just about one weapon or one mission. This was about whether proven competence could override institutional prejudice when lives hung in the balance. Then intelligence arrived that changed everything completely. Specialist Davis burst through the door with urgent intelligence that made everyone forget the personal confrontation. 8 high-value targets spotted moving through the Tora Bora Valley system. A Taliban leadership meeting scheduled for 4 hours, the kind of operational opportunity that appeared once per deployment cycle. But eliminating the targets would require precise overwatch to neutralize security positions without alerting the main leadership group. Crawford immediately began outlining his tactical plan, suggesting one of his staff officers could handle overwatch duties if this sergeant couldn't perform under genuine combat pressure. The lieutenant, he indicated, maybe 26 years old, had qualified marksman during basic training, but possessed nowhere near the skill level needed for precision combat shooting at extended ranges. Chief Warrant Officer Thompson tried reasoning with the Admiral, explaining that the identified positions would require specific shots through narrow engagement windows at ranges between 900 and 1,700 meters. Crosswinds through the valley system approached 18 miles per hour, creating ballistic challenges that demanded exceptional expertise and intimate knowledge of local environmental conditions. Crawford doubled down on his position, declaring that marksmanship fundamentals remain constant regardless of gender, that his competitive shooting experience at Annapolis qualified him to evaluate who possessed adequate capabilities for the mission. His theoretical knowledge should translate directly to tactical application, he insisted, dismissing concerns about combat-specific skills. That's when he made his critical mistake, yanking the bear hard enough to pull Sarah off balance, while declaring he would personally demonstrate proper weapon handling techniques. Her response was pure muscle memory developed through years of combatives training and survival instinct honed by multiple combat deployments. She twisted the rifle using the Admiral's momentum against him, a technique that redirected his force while maintaining control of her weapon. Her left hand found his wrist, applying pressure to the median nerve while rotating the joint beyond its comfortable range of motion. The joint lock, perfected through hundreds of hours of close-quarters combat training, could dislocate joints if applied with full force. The audible crack wasn't a break. Sarah had controlled the pressure precisely, but definitely strained ligaments in a way that would remind Crawford of this moment for weeks. He dropped to one knee, his face pale with pain and shock at the unexpected resistance to his authority. His security detail reached for sidearms instinctively, trained to protect flag officers from any perceived threat. Every special operator in the room stood up simultaneously, hands moving toward weapons in response to the escalating situation. The standoff lasted 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, with careers and lives balanced on split-second decisions. Then Sarah did something that nobody expected, something that transformed confrontation into opportunity. She helped Crawford to his feet professionally, without emotion or triumph, and made him an offer that would settle the question of her capabilities permanently while serving the mission's operational requirements. "Give me 6 targets at maximum range. Any distance the Admiral chooses," Sarah said with professional calm. "If I miss even one, I'll accept any disciplinary action he wants, including court-martial for striking a superior officer. But if I make all 6 shots, he lets me run Overwatch for the mission without interference." Crawford, cradling his injured hand while a corpsman wrapped the strained ligaments, agreed through gritted teeth. His pride wouldn't allow him to back down, even wounded. The challenge had been issued publicly, witnessed by every operator in the task force. Refusing would acknowledge her capabilities, while accepting would either vindicate his position or humiliate him completely. They moved to the range behind FOB Thunder, word spreading through the base with the speed that only military gossip could achieve. Within minutes, 40 soldiers gathered to witness what everyone understood would be a defining moment. The confrontation had transcended personal conflict, becoming a test of everything the military claimed to value: merit, capability, and performance under pressure. 6 targets were placed at distances that pushed both equipment and operator to absolute limits. 800 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,200 meters, 1,400 meters, 1,600 meters, and 1,820 meters. The final target exceeded the Barrett M82A1's maximum effective range under current atmospheric conditions, requiring calculations that accounted for variables most shooters never encountered. Sarah didn't rush her preparation. She checked wind patterns using techniques her grandfather had taught her decades earlier, calculated bullet drop based on current temperature and air density, and factored in the Coriolis effect that became significant at extreme ranges. For distances beyond 1,500 meters, she needed to account for Earth's rotation affecting bullet trajectory, a calculation that separated expert marksmen from exceptional ones. The Barrett's familiar weight settled into her shoulder like an old friend returning home. Every system had been maintained to perfection, every round of ammunition tested for consistency. Her shooting log contained performance data for this specific rifle under these exact environmental conditions. Months of obsessive preparation were about to be validated or destroyed by 6 trigger pulls. First shot, 800 meters. The bullet impacted center mass with precision that drew appreciative murmurs from experienced shooters in the crowd. Sarah had expected this distance to present minimal challenge, serving as calibration for the increasingly difficult shots to follow. Second shot, 1,000 meters. Perfect hit despite a sudden gust that would have sent most bullets wide of their intended target. Sarah had read the wind shift in dust patterns and grass movement, adjusting her point of aim to compensate for environmental changes that occurred between her calculation and trigger pull. Third shot, 1,200 meters. She adjusted for mirage effects created by heat rising from sun-warmed rocks, a phenomenon that could make targets appear displaced from their actual positions. The bullet struck dead center, demonstrating her ability to separate visual distortion from ballistic reality. Fourth shot, 1,400 meters. A crosswind that had been gusting irregularly suddenly steadied, providing a brief window of optimal conditions. Sarah recognized the opportunity instantly, firing during the momentary lull and achieving another perfect impact that silenced even her harshest critics. Fifth shot, 1,600 meters. The bullet required over 2 seconds of flight time, during which atmospheric conditions could change enough to affect accuracy significantly. She waited for wind patterns to align with her calculations, then delivered a shot that struck the target center with surgical precision. The final target waited at 1,820 meters, a distance that challenged every aspect of long-range precision shooting. Sarah spent 5 minutes reading environmental conditions, calculating adjustments that pushed mathematical precision to its limits. The wind had to cooperate, the temperature needed to remain stable, and her execution had to be flawless. She waited for the wind to speak through dust and vegetation, reading patterns that revealed brief moments of stability in the chaotic mountain air. When the conditions aligned perfectly with her calculations, she controlled her breathing and let muscle memory guide the trigger pull. 3 seconds of flight time felt like eternity. The steel target rang like a church bell when the bullet impacted, the sound echoing off surrounding mountains like thunder announcing a storm's arrival. Rear Admiral Daniel Crawford stood silent for 30 seconds, his injured hand wrapped by the corpsman while he processed what everyone had witnessed. His eyes moved from the distant target to Sarah's rifle, then to the faces of 40 soldiers who had just watched theoretical authority surrender to demonstrated competence. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable, filled with the weight of assumptions being shattered and preconceptions being forcibly recalibrated. Crawford had built his career on the belief that rank and experience provided automatic credibility, that his competitive shooting background qualified him to judge combat capabilities he had never personally tested. Then he did something that shocked everyone present, something that revealed character depth that few had suspected existed beneath his administrative arrogance. He saluted with his left hand, a gesture not required for enlisted personnel, but one that carried profound meaning in military culture. "Master Sergeant Mitchell," he said formally, his voice carrying none of its earlier condescension. "I apologize publicly for my prejudice and poor judgment. I have been in the Navy for 28 years and have never witnessed shooting of that caliber under these conditions." The apology resonated across the range with the power of genuine humility. Crawford had recognized not just Sarah's exceptional skills, but his own failure to evaluate capabilities objectively. His competitive shooting experience at Annapolis suddenly seemed insignificant compared to her combat-proven expertise in conditions that would challenge any marksman alive. "I was wrong about your qualifications," he continued, addressing not just Sarah, but the entire assembled crowd. "I allowed personal bias to override professional judgment, and I put mission success at risk because of my assumptions about gender and capability." Chief Warrant Officer Thompson from Delta Force stepped forward, his expression reflecting the respect that special operations personnel reserve for proven warriors. "Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to state officially that Master Sergeant Mitchell has provided overwatch for our most challenging operations with results that exceed any designated marksman we've worked with." Crawford nodded, then turned back to Sarah with an expression that mixed embarrassment with genuine admiration. "Master Sergeant, I formally request that you provide overwatch for the Tora Bora Valley operation. Your demonstrated capabilities make you the obvious choice for this mission success." The transformation was complete and irreversible. Within minutes, Sarah had gone from dismissed diversity hire to acknowledged expert whose skills commanded respect from the highest levels of military leadership. The demonstration had proven what months of service records and performance evaluations had failed to establish. That exceptional capability transcended every other consideration. Master Sergeant Williams from the Rangers approached Crawford with tactical maps showing the planned operation. "Sir, if I may suggest, Master Sergeant Mitchell's knowledge of local terrain could be invaluable for mission planning. She studied every valley and ridge line in this operational area with detail that exceeds our standard intelligence reports." Crawford examined the maps, while Sarah provided tactical analysis that revealed depth of preparation nobody had suspected. She had identified optimal shooting positions for various weather conditions, calculated approach routes that maximize concealment, and developed contingency plans for scenarios that official doctrine had never considered. Her personal annotations showed wind pattern variations by season, elevation changes that affected ballistic calculations, and sight lines that could be exploited for tactical advantage. The information represented hundreds of hours of study that went far beyond required duties, preparation driven by understanding that someone's life might depend on her knowledge during critical moments. The briefing that followed established Sarah as the operation's primary designated marksman, with complete authority over positioning and engagement decisions. Crawford's public acknowledgement of her capabilities had eliminated any remaining resistance to her leadership role in precision fire support. But more importantly, the demonstration had changed fundamental assumptions about merit and capability throughout the task force. Soldiers who had maintained polite distance began seeking her tactical input. Officers who had dismissed her presence started incorporating her assessments into operational planning. The ripple effects extended beyond immediate mission requirements. Crawford returned to his headquarters with a completely different perspective on personnel evaluation and the dangers of allowing prejudice to override objective performance data. His influence would impact policy decisions that affected female service members throughout the theater of operations. As the crowd dispersed and preparations began for the upcoming mission, Sarah cleaned her Barrett M8201 with the same methodical precision she had always maintained. But something fundamental had changed in how others perceived both her capabilities and their own assumptions about who belonged in combat roles. The mission launched at 0400 hours under a moonless sky that provided perfect concealment for the approach through Tora Bora's treacherous terrain. Sarah positioned herself on a ridgeline 2,000 meters from the target compound. Her Barrett M82A1 calibrated for the specific atmospheric conditions that would determine success or failure over the next 6 hours. Intelligence reports indicated 8 high-value Taliban targets would gather for a strategic planning session that could coordinate attacks throughout the entire theater of operations. Eliminating this leadership cell would disrupt enemy capabilities for months while gathering intelligence that could prevent dozens of future attacks on coalition forces. Sarah's role extended beyond traditional overwatch duties. Her precision fire would need to eliminate security positions without alerting the main leadership group, creating opportunities for ground units to capture targets alive for interrogation. Each shot required surgical accuracy that left no margin for error or detection. Through her rifle scope, she identified 12 defensive positions surrounding the compound, each manned by Taliban fighters armed with automatic weapons and rocket-propelled grenades. The security arrangement showed professional military planning that indicated experienced leadership and serious operational importance. Her first target appeared at 0515 hours, a sentry position to observe the primary approach route that ground units would use for their assault. The shot required threading between terrain features that could deflect the bullet while accounting for crosswinds that had shifted twice since her initial calculations. Sarah controlled her breathing and let muscle memory guide the trigger pull. The bullet traveled over 1,800 meters through mountain air before impacting center mass with lethal precision. The sentry dropped without sound, eliminating the threat while maintaining complete operational security. Her second target presented a more complex challenge, a machine gun position that commanded overlapping fields of fire with adjacent defensive positions. Sarah waited for the gunner to separate from his assistant, then delivered a shot that eliminated the primary threat while leaving the assistant unaware of the engagement. The third elimination required her most precise shooting of the deployment. A Taliban commander was moving between positions, visible only through a narrow gap between buildings for approximately 3 seconds. Sarah had calculated the timing based on observed movement patterns, positioning her crosshairs where the target would appear. The shot broke at the exact moment the commander entered her sight picture. Flight time exceeded 2 seconds, during which he continued moving through her calculated trajectory. The bullet intercepted his movement pattern with clockwork precision, eliminating the threat before he could coordinate defensive responses. Over the next 2 hours, Sarah systematically dismantled the compound security network with shots that demonstrated absolute mastery of long-range precision shooting. Each elimination opened tactical opportunities for ground units, while maintaining the element of surprise that made capture operations possible. Her longest confirmed engagement occurred at 0645 hours when she eliminated a rooftop observer positioned 2,100 meters from her hide site. The shot required accounting for wind patterns that changed elevation between her position and the target, plus temperature variations that affected ballistic performance across the extended range. The bullet's flight time approached 3 seconds, during which atmospheric conditions remained stable enough to maintain accuracy. Impact was confirmed through her scope as the target dropped from sight, eliminating the last significant security threat before ground units initiated their final assault. Ground units reported minimal resistance as they approached the compound, finding security positions abandoned or occupied by confused personnel who hadn't realized their defensive network had been systematically eliminated by precision fire from positions they couldn't identify or engage effectively. The 8 high-value targets were captured without significant firefight, providing intelligence that would prove invaluable for future operations throughout the region. Documents recovered from the compound revealed detailed attack plans that would have targeted multiple forward operating bases simultaneously, operations that Sarah's precision shooting had effectively prevented. Her performance during the mission established new benchmarks for designated marksman capabilities in complex terrain under challenging conditions. Every shot had achieved its tactical objective while maintaining operational security that enabled mission success without friendly casualties. But perhaps more importantly, the mission demonstrated that exceptional individual capability could multiply force effectiveness far beyond traditional tactical calculations. Sarah's precision shooting had transformed a potentially costly assault into a surgical operation that achieved maximum results with minimal risk to friendly personnel. 3 days after the Tora Bora Valley operation, Rear Admiral Daniel Crawford submitted official paperwork that would fundamentally change Sarah's military career trajectory. The Silver Star citation he prepared focused specifically on her tactical performance during the mission, not the demonstration that had preceded it, ensuring the award recognized combat excellence rather than personal vindication. The citation read with military precision that captured the operational significance of her actions. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action against an armed enemy, while serving as designated marksman during Operation Thunderstrike. Master Sergeant Mitchell's precision fire eliminated 12 enemy security positions without detection, enabling the capture of 8 high-value targets and preventing coordinated attacks planned against coalition forces throughout the theater of operations. Crawford's recommendation letter provided additional context that elevated the award's importance beyond standard military recognition. Master Sergeant Mitchell demonstrated exceptional marksmanship capabilities under extreme conditions that exceeded the performance of any designated marksman in my 30 years of military service. Her tactical expertise and professional execution prevented significant coalition casualties while achieving mission objectives that will save countless lives. The paperwork moved through channels with unusual speed, supported by endorsements from every officer who had witnessed either her demonstration or the mission results. Chief Warrant Officer Thompson from Delta Force provided detailed tactical assessment that quantified her contribution to special operations success rates. Master Sergeant Williams from the Rangers submitted performance data showing measurable improvement in mission outcomes when Sarah provided Overwatch support. But Crawford's most significant contribution went beyond individual recognition. His experience had convinced him that merit-based evaluation needed to replace assumption-based assessment throughout military personnel policies. He used his position to advocate for systematic changes that would prevent capable personnel from being sidelined due to demographic characteristics rather than performance capabilities. His influence extended through multiple command levels as he shared lessons learned from his encounter with institutional prejudice and its operational costs. The story of his public confrontation with Sarah became a case study used in leadership development programs, demonstrating how preconceived notions could compromise mission effectiveness and waste exceptional talent. Crawford's advocacy proved particularly effective because his own transformation provided credible testimony about the dangers of allowing bias to override objective performance evaluation. Senior officers who might have dismissed similar arguments from other sources listened seriously when delivered by someone who had personally experienced the consequences of prejudicial decision-making. The policy changes he promoted focused on establishing clear performance standards that eliminated subjective evaluation criteria vulnerable to unconscious bias. Selection for specialized roles would depend exclusively on documented capabilities demonstrated under controlled testing conditions, removing opportunities for personal preference to influence professional assignments. Sarah's Silver Star ceremony took place 6 weeks after the Tora Bora operation, conducted with full military honors that recognized both her individual achievement and the broader principles her success represented. The audience included personnel from multiple services who understood the significance of her recognition, extending beyond personal accomplishment. Crawford personally presented the award, his remarks acknowledging both her exceptional capabilities and his own initial failure to recognize them properly. This ceremony represents more than individual recognition, he stated. It demonstrates our commitment to evaluating personnel based on proven performance rather than assumptions about capability. The award's impact resonated throughout the theater of operations as word spread about the female sniper who had achieved what many considered impossible under conditions that would challenge any marksman. Her reputation grew among units that had never worked with her directly, based on detailed accounts of her precision shooting and tactical effectiveness. More importantly, the recognition validated years of exceptional performance that had been consistently undervalued due to institutional resistance to acknowledging capabilities that challenged traditional expectations. Sarah had finally received official acknowledgement commensurate with her demonstrated excellence, breaking barriers that had limited opportunities for similarly qualified personnel. The Silver Star represented personal vindication, but its broader significance lay in establishing precedent for merit-based recognition that could benefit future generations of military personnel whose capabilities might otherwise be overlooked due to demographic characteristics rather than performance data. Crawford's transformation from skeptical antagonist to dedicated advocate demonstrated that even deeply ingrained prejudices could be overcome when confronted with undeniable evidence of exceptional capability and professional excellence. 4 months after receiving the Silver Star, Sarah received orders that represented the culmination of everything she had worked toward throughout her military career. Assignment to Fort Bragg as an instructor at the Special Operations Target Interdiction Course, later rebranded as the Special Forces Sniper Course, marked her transition from exceptional operator to institutional leader responsible for training the next generation of precision marksmen. The assignment carried profound significance beyond personal advancement. Sarah became the first female instructor in the Advanced Sniper program, breaking barriers that had existed since the course's establishment decades earlier. Her presence challenged assumptions about who could teach the military's most demanding marksmanship curriculum, while providing living proof that exceptional capability transcended traditional demographic expectations. Fort Bragg's sniper course attracted the military's most promising marksmen from every branch of service. Students arrived with expert-level shooting qualifications and competitive attitudes that demanded instructors prove their credentials through demonstrated superiority rather than assigned authority. Sarah's reputation had preceded her assignment, but institutional credibility required constant validation through performance that exceeded student capabilities. Her first class included 12 students: Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Marine Force reconnaissance personnel, and Air Force Special Operations marksmen whose previous training represented the pinnacle of conventional sniper education. They approached her instruction with professional courtesy, mixed with skeptical evaluation of her qualifications to teach skills they considered gender-specific due to physical and psychological demands. Sarah addressed their skepticism directly during the course introduction, acknowledging their concerns while establishing performance standards that would eliminate any questions about instructional competency. "My credentials are simple," she stated. Theater distance record for confirmed engagements, Silver Star for precision fire under extreme conditions, and tactical knowledge gained through multiple combat deployments in the most challenging terrain. The curriculum she developed incorporated lessons learned from her own experiences with institutional prejudice and the operational costs of underestimating individual capabilities. Technical instruction covered advanced ballistics, environmental compensation, and equipment optimization, but equal emphasis was placed on mental preparation for combat shooting under extreme stress. Her teaching methodology combined theoretical knowledge with practical application that pushed students beyond their comfort zones. Range exercises replicated combat conditions with environmental variables that challenged every aspect of precision shooting. Wind patterns that changed without warning, temperature variations that affected equipment performance, and time pressure that tested decision-making under stress. Sarah's most innovative contribution involved psychological preparation for combat shooting, addressing mental factors that separated successful snipers from technically qualified marksmen who failed under pressure. She taught students to channel emotional investment in mission outcomes and to enhance precision rather than allowing stress to degrade performance. The key to success in hostile terrain, she told her assembled students, is understanding that being emotionally invested in the outcome doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. Your precision saves lives. Every trigger pull means another soldier coming home safely to their family. Her personal experience with overcoming institutional resistance provided powerful examples for students who might face similar challenges in their careers. Excellence wasn't always enough to overcome preconceived notions, she explained, but documented performance under challenging conditions could eventually force recognition from even the most skeptical commanders. Student evaluations consistently rated her instruction as exceptional, noting her ability to communicate complex technical concepts while providing practical guidance for real-world application. Her combination of theoretical knowledge and combat experience created learning opportunities that exceeded traditional instructor capabilities. More importantly, her success as an instructor influenced policy changes throughout special operations training programs. Other courses began incorporating her methodologies while examining their own assumptions about instructor qualifications and the relationship between demographic characteristics and teaching effectiveness. The ripple effects extended beyond immediate training improvements. Students who completed her courses carried her lessons to units throughout the military, spreading techniques and attitudes that enhance precision shooting capabilities while challenging traditional assumptions about who could excel in specialized roles. Her grandfather Ivan would have been proud to see the ceremony, when she received her instructor certification. Though he had passed 2 weeks earlier with her Silver Star citation displayed on his bedside table next to his own military decorations for Vietnam. His final words to her had been simple. "You prove that impossible isn't permanent, little Falcon." 2 years after beginning her instructor assignment, Master Sergeant Sarah Falcon Mitchell stood in the same briefing room where Rear Admiral Daniel Crawford had once dismissed her capabilities with patronizing arrogance. But everything had changed. She now wore the insignia of senior instructor, and when she spoke about tactical approaches and precision shooting methodologies, everyone listened with the respect reserved for proven combat veterans whose expertise had been validated through exceptional performance. Her influence extended far beyond individual instruction. The Special Forces Sniper course had incorporated her teaching methods into official curriculum, transforming how the military approached precision shooting training. Students who completed her program consistently achieved higher performance scores while demonstrating improved psychological resilience under combat stress conditions. The key to success in hostile terrain, she told her current class of 14 advanced students, is understanding that being emotionally invested in the outcome doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. Your precision saves lives, prevents ambushes, and brings everyone home safely to their families. Her words carried authority earned through years of proving that exceptional capability could overcome institutional prejudice when supported by undeniable performance data. The students, representing elite units from every branch of military service, absorbed her lessons with appreciation for instruction that combined technical excellence with combatist wisdom. Sarah's Barrett M82, A1 still occupied its place of honor in her office, maintained with the same obsessive precision that had characterized her entire career. The rifle had become more than a weapon. It represented the principle that respect must be earned through demonstrated competence rather than granted through assumed authority or traditional expectations. Her squadron had completed 18 impossible missions since her promotion to senior instructor, saving over 300 American personnel from situations that conventional wisdom deemed hopeless. Each success reinforced the lesson she had learned during her unauthorized demonstration years earlier. Impossible wasn't permanent, and sometimes the most underestimated warrior becomes the most dangerous. The transformation extended throughout military culture as her former students carried her methods to units across multiple theaters of operation. Stories circulated about the female sniper instructor who had revolutionized precision shooting training while proving that excellence transcended every demographic consideration when properly recognized and developed. Crawford, now retired from active duty, occasionally visited Fort Bragg to observe training exercises and witness the institutional changes that had resulted from their initial confrontation. His own transformation from skeptical antagonist to dedicated advocate had become a case study used in leadership development programs throughout the military education system. During one such visit, he approached Sarah after watching her conduct advanced marksmanship training that pushed students beyond their perceived limitations. "Master Sergeant Mitchell," he said formally, "I want you to know that our encounter years ago changed not just my perspective, but policy approaches that have benefited countless military personnel whose capabilities might otherwise have been overlooked." The impact of her success rippled through generations of military personnel who benefited from merit-based evaluation systems that Crawford had helped implement following his recognition of how prejudicial assumptions could compromise operational effectiveness. Selection for specialized roles now depended exclusively on documented performance, rather than subjective criteria vulnerable to unconscious bias. Sarah's personal office contained letters from students who had applied her techniques successfully in combat operations around the world. Each correspondence reinforced her understanding that individual excellence, when properly channeled through institutional support, could multiply effectiveness far beyond traditional tactical calculations. Her grandfather's Winchester Model 70 occupied a position of honor beside her current service rifle, representing the continuity of precision shooting traditions that transcended individual careers while adapting to meet evolving operational requirements. Ivan's lessons about channeling emotion into precision had proven prophetic in ways he could never have anticipated. The woman they had once called too emotional to handle combat operations had become the instructor that everyone wanted, training their designated marksmen when missions required precision shooting under the most challenging conditions. Her emotional investment in student success had proven to be her greatest strength, enabling teaching effectiveness that exceeded conventional instructor capabilities. As she prepared for her next advanced class, Sarah reflected on the journey from dismissed logistics specialist to senior instructor whose methods had become military doctrine. The Barrett M82A1 remained ready for immediate deployment, but her greatest weapon had always been the determination to prove that exceptional capability would eventually overcome institutional resistance when supported by undeniable performance under pressure.